What is the Human Genome Project, HGP, and what are its goals?
The HGP was begun in 1990 as a 13-year effort and was slated to be completed in 2003. According to the official HGP website, http://www.dogenomes.org, the goals are as follows: identify all of the approximately 30,0040,000 genes in human DNA, determine the sequence of the 3 billion chemical pairs of human DNA, store this information in public databases, improve tools for data analysis, transfer related technologies to the private sector, address the ethical, legal, and social issues that may stem from the project.
What is a cell?
A cell is a membrane-bound unit that contains hereditary material, DNA, and cytoplasm. It is the basic structural and functional unit of life.
What is analogy?
To an evolutionist, an analogous structure is one that looks similar or has the same purpose but is definitely not the result of common inheritance. For example, bats and birds both use wings to fly, and the wings have the same general shape, thin but broad in width. However, the structures were not inherited from the same ancestors. Bats were four-legged mammals before their front limbs became modified for flight, while birds are not descended from mammals at all.
What are some examples of fermented foods?
Fermented foods are foods produced by microorganisms. A combination of bacteria and fungi are used in the fermentation process of many food products. Examples of fermented foods are cheese, sour cream, yogurt, sauerkraut, vinegar, olives, pickles, soy sauce, miso, chocolate, coffee, and most alcoholic beverages.
What is the Innocence Project?
The Innocence Project is a public law clinic at the Benjamin Cardozo Law School in New York that uses biotechnology, specifically DNA evidence, to reopen cases of people who have been wrongly convicted of crimes.
What are the major characteristics of all chordates?
All chordates share a notochord, dorsal nerve cord, and pharyngeal gill pouches. The notochord, a cartilaginous supporting rod, runs along the dorsal part of the body. It is always found in embryos, but in most vertebrates it is replaced. during development by a backbone of bony or cartilaginous vertebrae. The tubular dorsal nerve cord, dorsal to the notochord, is formed during development by an enfolding of the ectoderm. In vertebrates, the nerve cord eventually becomes encased and thus protected by the backbone. The pharyngeal gill pouches appear during embryonic development on both sides of the throat region, the pharynx.
What is the periderm?
Periderm replaces the epidermis as the protective covering. In stems and roots of plants with secondary growth, the periderm consists of three structures: 1. The cork or phellum. 2. The cork cambium or phellogen, and 3. The phelloderm. The cork or phellum is non-living and is the protective tissue formed to the outside by the cork cambium. The cork cambium or phellogen is the meristem that produces the periderm. The phelloderm is a living parenchyma tissue formed to the inside of the meristem.
What is the average size of a virus?
Viruses are much smaller than bacteria. The smallest viruses are about 17 nanometers in diameter. And the largest viruses are up to 1000 nanometers, 1 m, in length. By comparison, the bacterium Escherichia coli is 2000 nanometers in length. A cell nucleus is 2800 nanometers in diameter, and an average eukaryotic cell is 10,000 nanometers in length.
Which criteria were used to form what is referred to as the classical approach of bacterial taxonomy?
In this approach, bacteria are grouped into genera and species on the basis of the following characteristics. 1. Structural and morphological characteristics including shape, size, arrangement, capsules, flagella, endospores, and gram stain. 2. Biochemical and physiological traits such as optimum temperature and pH ranges for growth, oxygen requirements, growth factor requirements, respiration, and the fermentation of end products. Antibiotic sensitivities, and types of carbohydrates used as an energy source.
How wide is the lateral spread of the root system of trees?
The lateral spread of a tree's root system is 4 to 7 times greater than the spread of the crown of the tree.
What is the difference between inducible and repressible operons?
Inducible operons are used to produce proteins only under specific conditions. Most bacteria use glucose as their main energy source. Therefore, the unusual arrival of the milk sugar lactose in the cell turns the operator switch to the on position, which allows transcription to occur. Repressible operons have operators that are always on, transcription occurring. Unless a signal, for example, too much product, turns them off.
What are root hairs?
Root hairs are tiny projections and outgrowths on the outermost layer of the root epidermis. They occur near the tips of roots, where they are abundant. Root hairs are short-lived, and new ones are produced at approximately the same rate as older ones die. Some plants have as many as 40,000 root hairs per square centimeter.
What is the chemical composition of chitin?
Chitin, found in the exoskeletons of insects and other arthropods, is a glucosamine polysaccharide with the formula of C30H50O19N4 and a molecular weight of 770.42. The basic units of this substance are linked together by condensation reactions to make up long chains. Hydrogen bonds link the chains together and help make chitin rigid and strong. It is a white, amorphous, semi-transparent mass that is insoluble in common solvents like water and alcohol.
When was the first plant patent issued?
Henry F. Bosenberg, a landscape gardener, received U.S. plant patent number 1 on August 18, 1931. For a climbing or trailing rose.
How can behavior evolve?
If behavior has a genetic basis, and certain behaviors provide greater reproductive advantages than others, then those genes will become more common in the population. Therefore, while the behavior could be said to evolve, it is actually the genetic source of the behavior that is evolving.
Did dinosaurs and humans ever coexist?
No. Dinosaurs first appeared in the Triassic period, about 220 million years ago, and disappeared at the end of the Cretaceous period, about 65 million years ago. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, appeared only about 25,000 years ago. Movies that show humans and dinosaurs existing together are only Hollywood fantasies.
What is the role of the queen bee?
A honeybee society is made up of a single queen, a few male drones, and up to 80,000 female workers. The queen is the only female in the hive capable of reproduction. And she can lay as many as 1,000 eggs in a single day. While the queen's job is solely to lay eggs, the workers' jobs change over time. Young workers serve as nurses to the larvae that develop from the eggs. Older workers serve first as hive builders and then as foragers.
What is ELSI as it pertains to the Human Genome Project?
ELSI is a specific aspect of the Human Genome Project that deals with the ethical, legal, and social, issues, arising from increasing availability of genetic information. About 3 to 5% of the budget of the HGP is devoted to ELSI. It represents the largest bioethics study in the world.
Who was Ivan Pavlov?
Ivan Pavlov, 1849 to 1936, was a Russian physiologist who became famous for his experiments with dogs, in which the animals performed a specific behavior upon being confronted with a certain stimulus. In these well-known investigations, minor surgery was performed on a dog so that its saliva could be measured. The dog was deprived of food, a bell was sounded, and meat powder was placed in the dog's mouth. The meat powder caused the hungry dog to salivate. This is an example of an unconditioned reflex. However, eventually, after many trials, the dog would salivate at the sound of the bell, without meat powder being offered. This is an example of a conditioned reflex or classical Pavlovian conditioning. Although he never thought much of the then fledgling science of psychology, Pavlov's work on conditioned reflexes has been far-reaching, from elementary education to adult training programs. Pavlov was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, 1904, for his study of the physiology of digestion.
How does the root system of a monocot differ from the root system of a dicot?
The root system of a monocot is a fibrous mass of roots providing broad exposure to soil, water and minerals. The root system of a dicot consists of one large taproot, with many small secondary lateral roots growing out of it.
Are all large fungi shaped like mushrooms?
The fruiting bodies of fungi come in a seemingly endless array of forms and colors. Many are variations on the familiar stalk and cap pattern of the common mushrooms sold in stores. Although some have minute spore-bearing pores instead of gills on the undersides of their caps. Many fungi do not resemble mushrooms at all. Puffballs are solid, fleshy spheres. Bird's nest fungi form little cups containing eggs packed with spores. One kind of fungus looks like a head of cauliflower, and others resemble upright, branching clumps of coral. Some protrude from tree trunks like shelves, while others look like glistening blobs of jelly.
What is pharmacogenomics?
Pharmacogenomics is the use of DNA technology to develop new drugs and optimize current drug treatment to individual patients. For example, the interaction of a drug with a specific protein can be studied and then compared to a cell in which a genetic mutation has inactivated that protein. Its potential is to tailor drug therapy to an individual's genome. A tailoring that could reduce adverse drug reactions and increase the efficacy of drug treatment.
How are taste and smell related?
By convention, air-breathing vertebrates, including humans, associate taste with materials that come in direct contact with the animal, usually through the mouth. By contrast, smell is associated with substances that reach the animal from a distance, usually through the nose. However, the distinction between the two becomes blurred when considering animals that live in water. Although fishes have well-developed chemoreceptors, scientists generally do not refer to the senses of taste and smell in fishes.
Which plant has the deepest root system?
Roots of the desert shrub mesquite, Prosope juliflora, have been found growing nearly 175 feet 53.5 meters deep near Tucson, Arizona.
Do animals laugh?
So far, no example of animal laughter comparable to that of humans has been documented. However, researchers have reported that under certain conditions some species emit special vocalizations that could be considered akin to laughter. In one specific case, a researcher has been able to identify a huffing sound unique to dogs at play. Scientists studying the behavior of non-human primates and rats have reported similar observations.
Do animals other than humans have fingerprints?
It is known that gorillas and other primates have fingerprints. Of special interest, however, is that our closest relative, the chimpanzee, does not. Koala bears also have fingerprints. Researchers in Australia have determined that the fingerprints of koala Bears closely resemble those of human fingerprints in size, shape, and pattern.
What are the major groups of organisms in the kingdom Protista?
There is little agreement among taxonomists on how to classify the protists. But they may be conveniently divided into 7 general groups that share certain characteristics of locomotion, nutrition, and reproduction.
What wood is the favorite for butcher's blocks?
Because of its resilience, the preferred wood for making butcher's blocks is derived from the American sycamore. Platanus occidentalis, also known as the American plane tree, buttonball, buttonwood, and water beech. The wood of Platanus occidentalis is also used as for veneers for decorative surfaces, fence posts, and fuel.
What is the largest jellyfish?
The largest jellyfish is the genus Cyanea capillata. It may be more than 6.5 feet 2 meters in diameter and have tentacles of 98 feet 30 m. long and is among the largest invertebrates.
How does an ultramicrotome differ from a standard microtome?
The ultramicrotome, developed after 1950 to prepare specimens for examination under the electron microscope, enables technicians to cut very thin sections, 50 to 150. Instead of embedding specimens in wax, small, 0.5 to 1.0 cubic mm. Biological specimens are embedded in very hard synthetic resins such as epoxy. In order to cut these very hard materials, special knives sharper than steel knives are used. The knives are either diamond knives or pieces of plate. Glass broken in a controlled way to produce a fine etch.
How are different species of fungi classified?
Fungi classification is based mainly on the type of reproductive spore a fungi produces. If the reproductive, sexual spores of a species have not been identified or examined, the fungi are placed in the phyla Deuteromycota. The 3 phyla of fungi are Ascomycota, Basidiomycota, and Zygomycota. Each phyla has unique reproductive spores, ascospores, basidiospores, and zygospores. A zygospore is a large spore enclosed in a thick wall. It is the result of the fusion of the nuclei of 2 cells that are morphologically similar to each other. An ascospore is the fusion of 2 cells that are either morphologically similar or dissimilar. Ascospores are produced in a sac-like structure called an ascus. Members of the phyla Ascomycota are known as sac fungi. Basidiospores are formed on a base pedestal called a basidium. Members of the phyla Basidiomycota are known as club fungi due to the shape of the pedestal. The phylum Chytridiomycota has at times been classified in the kingdom Fungi and at other times in the kingdom Protista. Recent evidence obtained from comparisons of protein and nucleic acid sequences has suggested they belong in the kingdom Fungi.
What evidence has led scientists to believe land plants evolved from green algae?
Many scientists believe that ancient green algae evolved into land plants. The chloroplasts present in green algae are the same as those of land plants. In addition, green algae have cell walls of similar composition to land plants. Both store food, such as starch, in the same manner. Most green algae live in freshwater habitats with highly variable conditions. The ongoing changes in their environment have made them highly adaptable.
What are the components of smog?
Smog, the most widespread pollutant in the United States, causes a photochemical reaction that produces ground-level ozone, an odorless and tasteless gas. Ozone, in the presence of light, can initiate a chain of chemical reactions. However, while ozone is desirable in the stratospheric layer of the atmosphere, defending Earth's surface from radiation, it can be hazardous to health when found near Earth's surface in the troposphere. The hydrocarbons, hydrocarbon derivations, and nitric oxides emitted from such sources as automobiles are the raw materials for these photochemical reactions. In the presence of oxygen and sunlight, the nitric oxides combine with organic compounds such as the hydrocarbons from unburned gasoline to produce a whitish haze, sometimes tinged with a yellow-brown color. In the process, a large number of new hydrocarbons and oxyhydrocarbons are produced. These secondary hydrocarbon products may compose as much as 95% of the total organics in a severe smog episode.
Why is it necessary to fix a biological specimen?
Fixing a biological specimen retains a reasonably good semblance of the object as it appeared when it was alive. It allows the scientists to observe details of the external and internal anatomy of the specimen.
Do animals have color vision?
Most reptiles, fishes, insects, and birds appear to have a well-developed color sense. Most mammals are colorblind. Apes and monkeys have the ability to tell colors apart. Dogs and cats seem to be colorblind and only see shades of black, white, and gray.
What are the functions of microtubules?
Microtubules help determine the cell shape, move chromosomes during cell division, and provide the internal structure of cilia and flagella.
What factors might influence the interpretation of DNA fingerprinting?
Ruling out procedural sources of error, such as contamination from another sample or improper sample preparation. DNA obtained from siblings will share both alleles at a particular locus, and so the DNA profile may not be conclusive. DNA from identical twins will have identical DNA profiles. The frequency of identical twins in a population is 1 in every 250 births. In all cases, the probability calculations that are used in DNA profiling are based on a large population. Therefore, if a population is small or reflects interbreeding, probabilities must be adjusted.
What is a codon?
A codon is the 3-unit sequence, OG, AGC, etc. of mRNA nucleotides that codes for a specific amino acid. Since there are only 20 commonly used amino acids and 64, 4x4x4, possible codon sequences, the genetic code is described as both degenerate and unambiguous. Each codon codes for only one amino acid, but each amino acid may have more than one matching codon.
What type of cell is found in nerve tissue?
Neurons are specialized cells that produce and conduct impulses, or nerve signals. Neurons consist of a cell body containing a nucleus and two types of cytoplasmic extensions, dendrites and axons. Dendrites are thin, highly branched extensions that receive signals. Axons are tubular extensions that transmit nerve impulses away from the cell body, often to another neuron. Other cells in nerve tissue nourish the neurons, insulate the dendrites and axons, and promote quicker transmission of signals.
If plants contain chlorophyll, how can they be parasitic?
Parasitic plants harm other plants as they obtain nutrients from them. Cancer root, Orobonch uniflora, and mistletoe, genus Pharadendron, parasitize hardwood trees. And trees such as sandalwood, genus Santalum, obtain their nutrients from nearby grasses. Indian pipe, Monotropa uniflora, gets its nutrients from mycorrhizae of trees. Many parasitic plants lack chlorophyll and cannot carry out photosynthesis, and thus they depend entirely on their host for nutrients. In some cases, the presence of chlorophyll does not guarantee an independent lifestyle. Mistletoe and witchweed, genus Striga, are green yet grow only as parasites. The green portions of these parasites contain only small amounts of certain enzymes required in photosynthesis. The link between parasites and their hosts is called a hostorium. In many plants, the link is one or more xylem to xylem connections between the two plants. The parasitic plant depends largely on the evaporation of water from its leaves as a means of pulling nutrient containing water from the xylem of its host. The stomata of many parasitic plants always remain at least partially open, even at night, ensuring a continuous supply of nutrients from the host.
What is the genetic code?
The genetic code is a chart depicting the relationship between each of the possible mRNA codons and their associated amino acids. The codons are grouped according to the amino acid they code for. Present in the code as well are the start and stop codons. The start codon actually codes for methionine, which is always the first amino acid in the polypeptide sequence. Methionine may appear elsewhere in the polypeptide as well. Methionine is removed during post-translational processing.
What is eugenics?
Sir Francis Galton, 1822–1911, a cousin of Charles Darwin, founded eugenics. After reading Darwin's work on natural selection, Galton thought that the human species could be improved by artificial selection, the selective breeding for desirable traits. This method is often used in domesticated animals. In Galton's plan, those with desirable traits would be encouraged to have large families, while those with undesirable traits would be kept from breeding. However, Galton's theory overlooked two important points: the importance of environmental factors on phenotypic expression, and the difficulty of removing recessive traits from the gene pool. Recessive alleles can be passed from one individual to the next as part of a heterozygous genotype, thereby escaping detection for generations. Galton's work was enthusiastically adopted in both the United States and Europe. In the United States between 1900 and 1930, eugenics gave rise to changes in federal immigration laws and the passage of state laws requiring the sterilization of genetic defectives and certain types of criminals. In Europe, eugenics became a cornerstone of the Nazi movement.
What is the most dangerous poison produced by a plant?
In North America, the poisonous hemlock, Conium maculatum, is probably the most dangerous plant. The South American lana tree is another dangerous plant. Native Americans used its sap to make curare, a poisonous substance applied to their arrows and spears. It can cause death in a matter of minutes.
What are the three main types of microtomes?
The three main types of microtomes are the rocking, the rotary, and the sliding microtome. Each type of microtome has a special sharp steel knife to cut the specimen, which is embedded in a wax block. In a rocking microtome, the knife is in a fixed horizontal position. The wax block is attached to the end of an arm pivoted near. The knife end is moved or rocked in an arc past the knife edge. On a rotary microtome, the specimen moves up and down in a vertical plane. A large hand wheel in which one rotation produces a complete cutting cycle advances the specimen. A common type of sliding microtome has the specimen mounted on a moving carriage while the knife is fixed.
How is commercial cork cultivated?
Commercial cork is the outer bark of the cork oak, Quercus suber, grown in the western Mediterranean. The first periderm is commercially useless. It is removed from the tree and discarded when the tree is approximately 10 years old. When the tree is 20 to 25 years old and has a diameter of approximately 15.75 in. 40 centimeters, a usable cork layer 1.2 to 3.9 in, 3 to 10 centimeters, thick can be harvested. A similar layer can be harvested approximately once every 10 years until the tree is approximately 150 years old. The cork of a cork oak breaks away at the cork cambium and can be peeled off without harming the tree.
How do you teach a parrot to talk?
Teaching a parrot or cockatoo to talk involves a combination of repetition and reward. The owner or trainer reinforces proper vocalization by the bird with treats or laudatory language.
Why are fungi disappearing?
Gourmets with a taste for the subtle flavors of fresh wild mushrooms are discovering that those delicacies are increasingly hard to find. In Europe, just a few years ago, it was easy to pick a basket of one of the most prized fungi, the apricot chanterelle. However, not only are these mushrooms becoming scarce, the ones that do grow wildly do not grow to the same size they once did. In 1975 it took 50 times more chanterelles to make up 2.2 pounds, 1 kilogram, than it did in 1958. Other fungi are also becoming rare. For example, the average number of fungal species per 120 square yards, 1,000 square meters. In the Netherlands has dropped from 37 to 12. One reason for this decline has been an increase in air pollution. Fungi are more sensitive to air pollution than plants because fungi have no protective covering. Whereas the aerial parts of plants are protected by cuticles and bark. In addition, while plants extract water from soil using their roots, some fungi absorb water directly from the atmosphere, along with the pollution that may be present in the air. Poor air quality contributes to the decline of fungi.
What are neurosecretory cells?
Neurosecretory cells are specialized nerve cells that produce and secrete hormones. Well-known examples of neurosecretory cells are oxytocin and vasopressin-secreting neurons in the hypothalamus and cells in the adrenal medulla. These cells are found in vertebrates and invertebrates.
Do humans show grooming behavior similar to that of other primates?
Grooming is an important tool in cementing social relationships among primates. In studies of non-human primates, grooming, which is used ostensibly to remove external or ectoparasites, most often occurs between close relatives. In humans, grooming is also used as a relationship builder. Although humans will groom non-relatives as well.
What are turgor movements?
Turgor movements in plants are movements that are reversible. These movements are caused by changes in the turgor pressure of specific cells. For example, some plants exhibit different leaf positions during the day than at night.
How has flight contributed to the success of insects?
Flight is one key to the great success of insects. An animal that can fly can escape many predators, find food and mates, and disperse to new habitats much faster than an animal that must crawl about on the ground.
Who started Earth Day?
The first Earth Day, April 22, 1970, was coordinated by Dennis Hayes at the request of Gaylord Nelson, 1916, U.S. Senator from Wisconsin. Nelson is sometimes called the father of Earth Day. His main objective was to organize a nationwide public demonstration so large it would get the attention of politicians and force the environmental issue into the political dialogue of the nation. Important official actions that began soon after the celebration of the first Earth Day were the Establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the creation of the President's Council on Environmental Quality, and the passage of the Clean Air Act, establishing national air quality standards. In 1995, Gaylord Nelson received the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his contributions to the environmental protection movement. Earth Day continues to be celebrated each spring.
What are the four groups of seedless, vascular plants?
The seedless, vascular plants include ferns of the genus Pterophyta, which is the largest group, the whisk ferns of the genus Xylophyta, the club mosses of the genus Lycophyta, and the horsetails of the genus Arthrophyta.
What is nuclear magnetic resonance?
Nuclear magnetic resonance, NMR, is a process in which the nuclei of certain atoms absorb energy from an external magnetic field. Scientists use NMR spectroscopy to identify unknown compounds, check for impurities, and study the shapes of molecules. They use the knowledge that different atoms will absorb electromagnetic energy at slightly different frequencies.
What is divergent evolution?
When two species move away from the traits that they share with a common ancestor, as they adapt to their own environments, the result is called divergent evolution. As an example, imagine the diversity among bird species. Ducks, hummingbirds, ostriches, and penguins are all descended from an ancestral bird species. Yet they have all diverged as they adapted to their particular environments.
What are the different kinds of mutations?
Mutations may be germinal, occurring within the gametic cells, or somatic, occurring within any non-sex cell. The difference is that a germinal mutation will affect all cells of an individual, while a somatic mutation will only affect those cells produced by mitosis from the original mutated cell. There are various categories of mutations. A point mutation is a change in a single DNA base. A deletion occurs when information is removed from a gene. An insertion occurs when extra DNA is added to a gene. Frameshift mutations occur when one or two bases are either added or deleted.
What gases are commonly used for the mobile phase of gas chromatography?
The carrier gas must be chemically inert. Commonly used gases include nitrogen, helium, argon, and carbon dioxide.
What predicts whether one animal will help another?
Usually animals that help one another are of the same species. Conspecific, and are most likely to be genetically related. The closer the relationship, the more likely helping will occur. This is demonstrated among vampire bats, where bats returning to the roost may share blood with those who have not fed. Most sharing occurs between close relatives, e.g., mother and offspring. However, unrelated but closely associated individuals may exhibit reciprocal altruism, where help is given to those individuals most likely to return the favor.
What is the unique characteristic of connective tissue?
The cells of connective tissue are spaced widely apart and are scattered through a non-living extracellular material called a matrix. The matrix may be a liquid, jelly, or solid and varies in the different types of connective tissue.
What is the current model of the plasma membrane?
The current model, frequently referred to as the fluid mosaic model, is based on work completed by Seymour J. Singer, 1924, and Garth L. Nicholson, 1943, in 1972. Their research revealed that the plasma membrane is a mosaic of integral proteins bobbing in a fluid bilayer of phospholipids. This pattern is not static because the positions of the proteins are constantly changing, moving about like icebergs in a sea of lipids. Peripheral proteins are not embedded in the lipid bilayer, but are appendages loosely bound to the membrane surface. Membrane carbohydrates on the surface function as cell markers to distinguish one cell from another. This model has been tested repeatedly and has been shown to accurately predict the properties of many kinds of cellular membranes. This structure has also been confirmed using a technique known as freeze fracture electron microscopy.
What is a banyan tree?
The banyan tree, Ficus bengalensis, native to tropical regions of Southeast Asia, is a member of the genus Ficus. It is a magnificent evergreen that can reach 100 feet (30.48 meters) in height. As the massive limbs spread horizontally, the tree sends down roots that develop into secondary, pillar-like supporting trunks. Over a period of years, a single tree may spread to occupy as much as 2,000 feet (610 meters) around its periphery.
What is golden rice?
In 2000, scientists used 3 genes, 2 from a daffodil and 1 from a bacterium. To create a rice variety that contained beta-carotene. The importance of this is that in the human body, beta-carotene is converted to vitamin A. A crucial vitamin missing from the diet of millions of poor people around the world. Lack of vitamin A causes the death of an estimated 1 million of Asia's poorest children due to weakened immune systems. Vitamin A deficiency is also linked to blindness. The rice was called golden rice because it turned yellow like a daffodil.
How many quills does a porcupine have?
For its defensive weapon, the average North American porcupine has about 30,000 quills or specialized hairs. Comparable in hardness and flexibility to slivers of celluloid and so sharply pointed they can penetrate any hide. The quills that do the most damage are the short ones that stud the porcupine's muscular tail. With a few lashes, the porcupine can send a rain of quills that have tiny scale-like barbs into the skin of its adversary. The quills work their way inward because of their barbs and the involuntary muscular action of the victim. Sometimes the quills can work themselves out, but other times the quills pierce vital organs, and the victim dies. Slow-footed and stocky, porcupines spend much of their time in the trees, using their formidable incisors to strip off bark and foliage for their food, and supplement their diets with fruits and grasses. Porcupines have a ravenous appetite for salt, as herbivores. Plant-eating animals, their diets have insufficient salt. So natural salt licks, animal bones left by carnivores, meat-eating animals. Yellow pond lilies, and other items having a high salt content, including paints, plywood adhesives, and human clothing that bears traces of sweat, have a strong appeal to porcupines.
How can spinach neutralize the explosive trinitrotoluene, TNT?
TNT is a dangerous explosive. There are more than 500,000 tons of TNT stockpiled throughout the United States. Spinach contains a powerful enzyme called nitroreductase that is able to neutralize TNT by converting it to other compounds that are less dangerous. Through additional reactions, these less harmful compounds can be converted to carbon dioxide gas. This enzymatic process is of great interest to the United States military.
Have fungi been effective in biocontrol?
Biocontrol is defined as the use of one living organism to kill or control another organism. Fungi that parasitize insects are a valuable weapon for biocontrol. The spores of a parasitic fungus are sprayed on pest insects. The fungus then attacks and controls its host. A fungus was identified as killing populations. of silkworms in as early as 1834. The spores of the same fungus are now used as a myco-insecticide, a parasitic fungus used to kill insects to control Colorado potato beetles. The spores of other fungi are used to control spittle bugs, leafhoppers, citrus rust mites, and other insect pests.
How many different organisms have been identified by biologists?
Approximately 1.5 million different species of microorganisms, plants, and animals have been described and formally named. Some biologists believe this is only a fraction of species that exist, estimating that there are more than 10 million species waiting to be discovered, classified, and named. It is estimated that 15% of all species are marine organisms. Most scientists agree that only 5% of bacteria, fungi, nematode, and mite species have been discovered.
How much weight can an ant carry?
Ants are incredibly strong in relation to their size. Most ants can carry objects 10 to 20 times their own weight. And some ants can carry objects up to 50 times their own weight. Ants are able to carry these objects great distances and even climb trees while carrying them. This is comparable to a 100-pound person picking up a small car, carrying it 7 to 8 miles on his back, and then climbing the tallest mountain while still carrying the car.
What are the main characteristics of animals?
Animals are a very diverse groups of organisms, but all of them share a number of characteristics. Animals are multicellular eukaryotes that are heterotrophic, ingesting and digesting food inside the body. Animal cells lack the cell walls that provide support in the bodies of plants and fungi. Most animals have muscle systems and nervous systems, responsible for movement and rapid response to stimuli in their environment. In addition, most animals reproduce sexually with the diploid stage dominating the life cycle. In most species a large, non-motile egg is fertilized by a small, flagellated sperm, thus forming a diploid zygote. The transformation of a zygote to an animal of specific form depends on the controlled expression in the developing embryo of special regulatory genes.
What has been the impact of zebra mussels on North American waterways?
Zebra mussels, Dreissena polymorpha, are black and white striped bivalve mollusks. They are hard-shelled species that adhere to hard surfaces with byssal threads. They were probably introduced to North America in 1985 or 1986 via discharge. of a foreign ship's ballast water into Lake St. Clair. They have spread throughout the Great Lakes, the Mississippi River, and as far east as the Hudson River. High densities of zebra mussels have been found in the intakes, pipes, and heat exchangers of waterways throughout the world. They can clog the water intakes of power plants, industrial sites, and public drinking water systems. Foul boat hulls and engine cooling water systems, and disrupt aquatic ecosystems. Water processing facilities must be cleaned manually to rid the systems of the mussels. Zebra mussels are a threat to surface water resources because they reproduce quickly, have free-swimming larvae and rapid growth, lack competitors for space or food, and have no predators.
Who made the first gene map?
Although gene maps are a relatively recent, past 30 years, means of locating genes, geneticists of the early 20th century had prototype gene maps. Edmund Beecher Wilson, 1856 to 1939, and his colleagues were the first to demonstrate that the genetic differences between males and females were due to a special pair of chromosomes in the cell. Thomas Hunt Morgan, 1866 to 1945, Calvin Bridges, 1889 to 1938. And their colleagues were able to place a gene known to be inherited differently by males and females onto one of the sex chromosomes. This was the beginning of the first gene map.
What are some of the best known deuteromycetes?
Deuteromycetes are mostly free-living and terrestrial, but some are pathogenic. The best known pathogenic deuteromycetes include the causal agent, Aspergillus niger, of a respiratory disease called aspergillosis, athlete's foot, Epidermophyton floccosum. Ringworm, Microsporum canis, and Candida yeast infection, Candida albicans. Some other famous deuteromycetes are species of the genus Penicillium, particularly P. notatum, for the role it played in the discovery of penicillin, P. chrysogenum, for the commercial production of penicillin, P. Grysofulvum, for the production of grysofulvin. An effective antibiotic against ringworm and athlete's foot, and P. Roquefortii and P. camemberti, which are used to make Roquefort and Camembert cheeses, respectively.
What was Camillo Golgi's, 1843 to 1926, contribution to histology?
In 1873 Camillo Golgi, 1843 to 1926, devised a way to stain tissue samples with inorganic dye using silver salts. When he applied this technique and stained nerve tissue, he was able to see details previously not visible.
What is locoweed?
the leguminous loco weeds or milk vetches, genera Astragalus and Oxytropes, have been a severe problem for ranchers in the western half of the United States and are considered to be some of the most toxic plants for horses, sheep, goats, and cattle. Loco is the Spanish word for crazy and refers to the staggering and trembling behavior of poisoned animals who walk into things and react to unseen objects. The poisonous compounds are an unusual group of alkaloids that affect certain cells of the central nervous system, explaining the behavioral changes observed.
What is pleiotropy?
Pleiotropy refers to a case where one gene may influence several other characteristics. An example of pleiotropy is sickle cell anemia, a disorder in which a single point mutation in the amino acid sequence for hemoglobin results in a spectrum of effects. Red blood cells produce abnormal hemoglobin molecules, which, because of their odd shape, tend to stick together and crystallize. Therefore, the normal disc shape of red blood cells changes to a sickle shape. Hence the name of the disorder. Sickle-shaped red blood cells will clog small vessels, causing pain and the possibility of brain damage and heart failure. Since some of the hemoglobin in these cells is abnormal, there is less oxygen available, leading to physical weakness and anemia. If left untreated, the anemia can impair mental function.
What are the functions of the root system?
The major functions of roots are, 1. Anchorage in soil. 2. Storage of energy resources such as the carrot and sugar beet. 3. Absorption of water and minerals from the soil. And 4. Conduction of water and minerals to and from the shoot. The roots store the food, energy resources, of the plant. The food is either used by the roots themselves or digested, and the products of digestion are transported back up through the phloem to the above ground portions of the plant. The roots of some plants are harvested as food for human consumption. Plant hormones are synthesized in the meristematic regions of the roots and transported upward in the xylem to the aerial part of the plant to stimulate growth and development.
When did the last passenger pigeon die?
At one time, 200 years ago, the passenger pigeon, Ectopus migratorius, was the world's most abundant bird. Although the species was found only in eastern North America, it had a population of between 3 and 5 billion birds, 25% of the North American land bird population. Overhunting caused a chain of events that reduced their numbers below minimum threshold for viability. In the 1890s, several states passed laws to protect the pigeon, but it was too late. The last known wild bird was shot in 1900. The last passenger pigeon, named Martha, died on September 1, 1914, in the Cincinnati Zoo.
What is the basic composition of a sponge?
A sponge is supported by a skeleton made of hard crystals called spicules, whose shape and composition are important features in taxonomy. Calcareous sponges have spicules of calcium carbonates, the material of marble and limestone. The silica spicules of the hexactinellid, or glass, sponges are formed into a delicate, glassy network. Demosponges have siliceous spicules and a network of fibrous protein, spunger, that is similar to collagen. The demosponges are the source of natural household sponges, which are made by soaking dead sponges in shallow water until all the cellular material has decayed, leaving the spongin network behind. However, most sponges sold now for household use are plastic and have nothing to do with real sponges.
What is wood?
Wood is the accumulated secondary xylem of a plant. Generally, the wood used commercially is from plant stems rather than plant roots. Wood located near the center of a tree trunk is called hardwood. Its cells are infiltrated with gums and resins from the aging secondary xylem. Hardwood is often darker in color than wood nearer to the vascular cambium. Wood closer to the vascular cambium is called sapwood. It is actively involved in transporting water within the plant.
Fish and Wildlife Service. What is the most successful and diverse group of terrestrial vertebrates?
Birds, members of the class Aves, are the most successful of all terrestrial vertebrates. There are 28 orders of living birds with almost 10,000 species distributed over almost the entire Earth. The success of birds is basically due to the development of the feather.